Hey everybody, Dr. Nelson here. This is a video about subtracting negative integers. So for the first 2 pages, you're going to take notes with me, and then you have a chance to try some problems on your own, and then at the end you can see how you did. Alright, so far you've learned how to subtract integers, but now we're going to focus on how to subtract negative integers. And before you learn this 4-step process, do something called add the opposite. Well, because we're subtracting, let's underline the word subtract. Because we're subtracting, we can still follow that same 4-step process here. But before we do these 2 problems, I want you to take a look at this quote over here. It says, every time you subtract negative from your life, you make room for more positive. Think about that for a second. Let's say something was really bothering you, and that problem was taken care of, right? Well, wouldn't it be better now? Okay, or say, for example, you owed your brother or sister $5, and all of a sudden that debt was removed. Wouldn't that be a good thing? All right, so keep this in mind as we do these problems, because when you remove debt, all right, when you remove a negative, it tends to be a positive thing. So here we have negative 10 minus negative 10, and then 50 minus negative 20. So let's follow the 4 steps. So step number 1, remember, you keep the first number the same. So we're going to keep the negative 10, and keep the 50, 50. But then we now make these subtraction signs a plus. Make this one a plus. So then we're going to add the opposite. So the opposite of negative 10 is positive 10. And the opposite of negative 20 is positive 20. And then finally you just add. So negative 10 plus a positive 10 is 0. And 50 plus a positive 20 is 70. So when we subtracted a negative, do you notice what happened? Okay, in fact, we didn't subtract a negative. Well, actually, when we do subtract a negative, it's the same thing as adding, because 50 plus 20, right, gives us 70. So the rule for subtracting negative integers is subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. So let's write that down. Subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. And let's put a big star right there. All right? So if you turn the page, let's take a look at this mountain problem. And I want you to kind of visualize what it looks like to subtract a negative. So I want you to imagine that you go up to the top of this mountain. So let's draw a little happy face here. So that's us, okay? And let's say you throw a rock from the top of the mountain and it goes all the way down to the bottom of the sea here. So the question is, how far does that rock travel? Well, we know that this line right here, that's 0. That's like the sea level. So to go from the sea level up to the top of the mountain, okay, that's going to be 1,025 meters. But then notice that rock is going to go to 0, but then it's going to sink down even more, right? Okay, so the distance it's going to travel is going to increase. So the expression to represent the total distance is going to be 1,025, but then we're going to subtract a negative 155. Because now when we add the opposite, so I'm going to make that a plus, make that a plus. Now when I add 1,025 and 155, I get 1,180 meters. So again, to go from here down to the sea level, it's 1,025. But then we're also going to now go down another negative 155 feet. So when we subtract that, it's the same as adding, and that's how we get our total. So the bottom line is, when you subtract a negative, it's the same thing as adding a positive. So now that you understand how to do this, why don't you pause the video and try the your turn problems now, and then when you're done, hit play. You can see how you did. All right, good luck. All right, welcome back. Let's see how you do with these practice problems. So the first thing you have to do is you have to figure out the total height of the iceberg. Well, I know from 30 down to 0, that's 30 meters. And then from 0 down to negative 50, that's another 50 meters, right? So actually, we'll call it feet. So the expression is going to be 30 minus a negative 50. And now when I add the opposite, 30 plus 50 gives us the 80 feet. And that's the total height of the iceberg. All right, here again, we have 3 subtraction problems. In every one of these, we're subtracting a negative. And again, when you subtract a negative, it's the same as adding a positive. So let's add the opposite here. So we're going to make that a plus and a plus. We're going to make this one a plus and a plus. And make this one add the opposite, a plus and a plus. So now 12 plus 5 gives us 17. Negative 4 plus positive 2. Well, let's say you're in debt $4 and you earned $2 back. You're still going to be in debt, right? So that's going to be a negative 2. And then here we have 100 plus 50 will give us 150. And there it is. All right, how'd you do?